Hi everyone, I'm Christina, the Marketing Coordinator at Amphion, and I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to our fourth and final webinar of the series. We do hope you're all keeping safe and well, and we'd like to extend our sincerest thanks to those of you who have attended our webinars and who have continued to support us through these challenging times. We have really enjoyed staying engaged with you and hopefully teaching you a few things along the way. In some exciting news, we will in fact be hosting a bonus webinar next week that will be featuring Peter Monckton. So Peter is the Chief Economist and the Head of Market Strategy at the Bank of Queensland. Peter will be providing you all with an industry update and some key insights into the upcoming financial year. It's definitely one that you won't want to miss, so do look out for announcements via our socials and via email to register and secure your place. Just before I do hand off to Luke and Richard one more time, a couple of housekeeping items. So this webinar is CPD accredited as usual with the FBAA and the MFAA. So just to ensure you're eligible to earn those CPD hours, do stay logged in for the entire duration of the webinar and look out for our follow-up email that will contain the CPD codes for you. As has been the case with our previous sessions, we will be hosting a Q&A at the end of the presentation today. You can raise your hand to ask a question or send it through in the chat. Just a reminder, the raise your hand button is just in the top right of your screen next to some of those other functional buttons. If you have any quick questions that pop up while Luke and Richard are presenting, feel free to send them through using the chat, and Luke and Rick will do their best to address those questions as they arise. As you know, we're more than happy to take any questions that require a more specific or in-depth answer offline and get in touch with you following the webinar. That's pretty much all from me for now. I'll hand over to Luke.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. Really warm welcome from Rick and myself. We really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Hope everyone is staying safe during these tumultuous times. For those who have joined all 4 webinars so far, Rick will personally send you a bottle of champagne to say thank you for your attendance, but we do sincerely appreciate it. And as Christina mentioned, the bonus webinar is going to be very exciting, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And thanks again for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Luke, and a warm welcome to you all. As Christina and Luke have already both mentioned, this will be our 4th and final webinar. I am a little sad because firstly, you actually can't see my face. I've spent all morning trying to fix Teams with Luke's support, but we keep getting a too handsome error pop up, and both Luke and I are starting to believe it. And Thursdays was actually one day in the week where I actually got to shave, use product in my hair and try to squeeze into a business shirt, which admittedly became more and more difficult as the weeks went on. On a serious note, I do genuinely hope you've all enjoyed this as much as the 3 of us have. I'm sure there'll be a webinar series in the not so distant future with the Amphion team, so stay tuned. Now let's get straight into the topics we're going to be covering today. We're going to start with a recap from our first 3 webinars. So regardless of whether you attended or not, it'll be a good overview. We'll then move to interacting with your client and building rapport. Our final topic will be around the process or our process for managing escalations before we finish up with the Q&A. So I'm going to pass over back to Luke now, who's going to take us through the first 3 webinars. Over to you, Luke.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Rick. So there is quite a bit of content here, so please bear with me. And for those who were on those webinars, it should just be a nice healthy recap for you to kind of be reminded of what we went through. So we'll kick off with webinar 1. That included the difference between consumer and commercial loans. So as you can see here, consumer loans are regulated by the NCCP. Rates are often a little bit higher than commercial loans. This is due to the higher delinquency rates on consumer loans, as well as the fact that with our lenders, there is quite a bit of additional work that goes into managing consumer loans. There's compliance, there's complaints, there's quite a few other bits and pieces that actually go into that. We just got a bit of a note here from Alpha before I continue, saying that the presentation is not showing. If that's the same for anybody else, please let us know. Alpha, I'll send you the presentation after this and go through it with you separately, just to help with that. Moving forward, consumer loans also have a predetermined exit cost, so a fixed exit fee. Some lenders charge no exit fee at all, so they can be very beneficial for clients. The difference here when it comes to commercial loans is that they are used for predominantly business use, so wholly or 51% plus business use. The rates are often a little bit lower, and unlike consumer loans, there are low-doc policies. So you can have clients that don't need to prove income if they fit certain matrix. They can get access to funds without any kind of financials. Unlike consumer loans, where you will require some kind of proof of income, no matter what the situation is. Also worth noting that with consumer loans, business owners, directors, trustees, they can still get consumer loans, but they will require proof of income. Moving forward, we also went through some of the assets that we finance. So these include cars, exotics and classic as well. They include commercial equipment, trucks, prime movers, leisure assets like caravans, boats, jet skis, pretty much anything that's either depreciable, tangible, or identifiable. We can finance, and we also do have facilities like personal loans and business loans as well. During week one, we also went through the difference between dealer sales and private sales. As you can probably see in the slide, there are quite a few more things we require when it comes to a private seller. We do handle all of the nitty-gritty for you and all the dealings with the private seller as well. And with regards to dealers, the only time it gets a bit more complex is if they're a newly established dealer, and we might need to actually accredit them with the lender, which can include a deposit slip and an accreditation form. So something to think about there. We also went through in week one the role of AmFin and your AmFin consultant. So we'll call you within 15 minutes to say thanks for any referrals that you send over, discuss intricacies about the deal, and just kind of identify what the client needs and give us, a running start. We act professionally and as an extension of your brand, so we always want to remain, extension of your brand and make sure that the client feels like they're dealing with someone in your business who has the same, integrity, morals, ethics, and level of service that you've already delivered to them. We also don't remarket to your client, which is a really important factor. So your client does remain your client. We don't send them any further advertising or reach out to them. And if they do happen to come back to us for another facility, the first thing we do is get on the phone to you, let you know that they've approached us again, and I'd ask how you'd like us to proceed and whether you'd like us to run with it or revert it back to you. Moving forward, webinar 2, we discussed how to maximize your income with AmFin, which was a really interesting one. So just some intricacies around how asset finance brokerage firms get paid, and also the differences between types of loans and how those commissions are affected by the different loans that we offer. The main points here are that income is derived from the dealer origination fee, or the DOF, as well as brokerage. Consumer loans and commercial loans are paid differently. Consumer giving us a ceiling rate, which is then dialed down at our discretion with a full dial down of 2%, resulting in no brokerage. Commercial loans, on the other hand, we get a base rate from our lenders, which we then increase, and the difference between the base rate and the written rate or effective rate that we give the client results in brokerage. Also worth mentioning, each lender offers a different type of overs, or some people refer to it as spread or margin. So often a difference in rate could pay more with one lender than it does with a different lender. So something to think about there. Also went through the fact that lenders, some of them do cap brokerage. So there are lenders that will actually limit brokerage at 3%. Other lenders will increase the base rate at certain levels of brokerage. We kind of went through some examples in that webinar as to how it all looks and feels, and how brokerage affects different loan sizes and also different terms. One really important note is that there is often a sweet spot where a certain level of brokerage results in a really good deal, and anything more than that, due to the increase in base rate, can make it not very palatable for the client. So always discuss those kind of things with our team, and we're more than happy to walk through how it all looks on each deal. The reason why we charge brokerage is because of the service that we deliver. So we have access to over 55 different lenders that we manage accreditations for. We negotiate and workshop each deal with the lenders to make sure that firstly it is the right deal, and secondly that the client is getting the best deal. Often the lenders push back, and it requires us to really sell a narrative to them, and that's part of the service that we offer. We also offer the submission of the deal and all the approval steps, as well as settlement documentation and any supplier dealings, as I mentioned, dealer and private, that we might need to do. In webinar 3, we discussed supporting documentation, which can include, identification, income, as well as conduct and verification. Some of the important takeaways here were that there's no better indication of future lending than previous lending. So any clients that have got A-rated repayments with previous accounts, that definitely goes a long way into getting them approved. Also, when it comes to documentation, the less double handling, the better. So if we can receive anything that you've got from the client up front, saves us asking for stuff that you might already have. And if you want us to request all the documentation on your behalf, we can definitely do so. Whatever gives the client a better experience is how we're happy to run the deal. Also, we touched on notes, which is a really important function when it comes to referring over to us. Notes should include any expectations. So if the client, they might want a certain rate, they might need to pick up the asset before the weekend. Definitely worth putting those things in notes just to make sure that we're across it and we can, pick the right lender with the right offering to make sure that it runs nice and smooth. Another really good thing to note is any kind of information you have around the asset. So if you know what they're purchasing or whether they want a pre-approval, whatever information you can give us to kind of make us sound like part of your business and part of your brand will definitely be useful. The difference there is we have referrals that come in with no notes, and we're pretty much on the back foot already, kind of figuring out what the client wants and trying to do all the discovery ourselves. If the notes are done accurately, the call can sound like, "Hey John, it's Luke calling on behalf of XYZ brokerage firm. Your broker mentioned that you're looking for a brand new X5 for 105,000 and that you're trading the current one in. How can I help you today?" So we sound really informed, we sound like we're part of your business, and it just makes the client feel like, it's a much more professional experience. So something to think about. Aside from that, in webinar 3, we went through applications. So a couple of really good points to note here. Always very important to look at for all assets and liabilities. A lot of referrals that we get are missing some liabilities. So things like credit cards, personal loans, other asset finance commitments, really double check that you've covered off all of that stuff with the client. If you're not sure about, the accuracy there, the credit file is always a really good place to start. The credit file will show you any comprehensively reported asset finance commitments or commitments that they have. And it also shows all the inquiries they've made recently, which can help guide your search in terms of liabilities to make sure that it is correct. We also get questioned quite a bit when it comes to commercial loans. Do we need to disclose the assets and liabilities for the directors? The answer is yes. So in our space, that's how our lenders ascertain whether it's going to be a low doc or a full doc option. So anyone who's a director get the assets and liabilities, as well as anybody who is more than a 50% shareholder. So something to think about there. The last kind of 2 points that we went through when it comes to referring the deal to us was making sure that you're painting a picture of Amfin. So the more you can talk us up and the more you introduce the client to us before we make that phone call, the better it's going to go. The example that I used in last week's webinar was the mechanic example. So if I have a friend who needs a mechanic and I say, look, go and see Rick. His work's really clean, he's very efficient, he's priced very affordably, he does all of my mechanical work, and I really would recommend him. When they go in and see Rick and go to his mechanic workshop, they're already on the, feeling warm, they feel like they can trust him, they feel like they've had someone that they trust in me referring them on. So that process goes a lot smoother, and often Rick can give them a great experience without too much back and forward or less abrasion. So definitely something to think about when you're referring deals to us. Aside from that, any expectations that the client has, share them with us before we make that phone call, and also work with us to try and make sure that we have success in the deal. So this can be things like following up documentation. If for some reason the client's gone a bit quiet, re-engaging them, any competition, and also any kind of issues that might come up. It's always good to have you on our team to make sure that we're handling them together. The reason why all this is important is because service is at the forefront and the core of what we do. Making sure your client has a good experience is really important to myself and my team. So the better that you guys can work with us to try and make that the truth, the better the client experience. Also, it's worth noting we like to look after our lenders. So our lenders have certain expectations from us as an asset finance broker, and we have a really good relationship with them, which has helped us become so successful. And we want to make sure the information is accurate, everything's put together correctly, and the better that the brokers that refer us deals and our team can work together, the more accurate this information is, and the better the experience for everybody. Thank you for staying with me there on what was quite a bit of content, so I do appreciate your attention. I'm going to pass over to Rick now just to discuss client interaction and start walking through today's topics. Rick, over to you.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks, Luke. That was extremely informative, high-level breakdown from the past 3 webinars. And as Luke's already mentioned, if any of you have any questions on the back of that, please feel free to reach out to either Luke or myself at any point where we can explain it a little bit more in depth. Now, when it comes to client interaction or speaking to your client, first and foremost, we avoid slang. We don't use words like mate unless the client initiates. We match the client's tone and pace, unless the client obviously is aggressive, which is extremely rare in our case. We confirm they understand what's actually being discussed with phrases like, does that make sense to you? Are you all clear on that? Or do you have any questions for me? And if we're not 100% sure about something, and it could be a question like, hey, Rick, does Macquarie have an exit fee? Not 100% sure, Luke. Let me call my BDM and I'll get back to you by CIB today. That actually ensures we're getting it right the first time, which is extremely important. In addition to that, our team ensure we're available as possible. That could mean an after-hour phone call to complete an application if your client works during business hours and we can't get a hold of them, or we respond to emails after hours as well. We keep both yourself and your client updated every step of the way. We have a genuine interest in your client's outcome, which really goes hand in hand with our values. And if we don't get the result we're after, we work closely with your client in order to push back on that lender and try to get an outcome. What that essentially means is we don't take no for an answer, at least at the first attempt. And the reason we do all this is because we actually respect and value the relationship you have with your clients and want to make sure that we're delivering an exceptional customer experience. So I'm going to hand over back to Luke now. He's going to take us through building rapport.
Thanks for that, Rick. Very good summary there. So when myself and my team are building rapport, we use what's called the FORD acronym, which includes family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So family are things like marital status, any children, newborns, anything that we can kind of pull on there that might be a point of interest, and we can show that common ground there. Occupation, so what industry they're working in, what their actual job title is, and what they do for a living, as well as length of employment, things like that. It's often, amazing some of the chats that we have with some of our clients. We get clients from all walks of life, and some of the jobs that they hold are truly interesting. And when we show that interest, it makes them feel very comfortable and very warm. So job and occupation is a really good one. Recreation is things that they do on the weekends. So it could be, they watch the rugby league, they might like camping, fishing, anything to do with, their hobbies. We can often find a bit of common ground around things like that. And then dreams. So dreams includes, going for a promotion, starting a new business, starting a family, anything that's aspirational for the client. It's really important that we tap into those and make sure that we share, our interest in their experiences there, because a lot of the time dreams are related to the purchase of the asset and could be a reason why they're buying or doing something with us. So it's very important to tap into that and build rapport around dreams. Another really important point when it comes to building rapport that I encourage all of my staff to maintain is that we remain human. So when you're making 100+ phone calls a day, it's very easy to kind of slip into that mindset that it's just another client or another number, and it becomes monotonous. Our team really go against the grain here, and we make sure that we're present on every single call. We want to make sure that we remember that there's a human on the other side of the phone who has their own fears, their own aspirations, their own concerns, and especially during a time like this where everyone's in a similar position and it is a bit hard. It's even more important that we give that extra human touch to make sure the client feels really special and that they're comfortable with us. So remaining human for us is very, very important. And the last thing too is taking note of any important factors. So if they've just had a newborn, if they've just got a promotion, they might have changed jobs. We don't just gloss over those things. We like to make it a big deal, talk about the intricacies of that, just to make the client feel like we're really listening to what they're saying, and we're not just asking these questions to take an application. It's really about giving them a great experience. So making sure that we make big things a big deal is really important. Moving forward, one of my favorite quotes when it comes to building rapport is from Dale Carnegie, which is to be interesting, be interested. It's from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a really good read. I'm often surprised at how many conversations I have where I'm only talking for 20 or 30% of the time, unlike today, obviously. And the client walks away with a really good experience, really happy with the service. And all I've really done the entire time is just, bonded with them, showed interest, built rapport, asked them, really good questions, and they walk away from the experience really happy. So showing genuine interest is really important. Another thing is understanding the importance of the purchase. So when it comes to what they're actually buying, everyone's got a different kind of reason for their purchase. So we might have a young lady who's buying her first Mazda 2. It could be a gentleman who runs a trucking business and he's buying his third truck to pick up a new contract. Could be a businessman who's buying his first Ferrari or Lamborghini. All of these purchases are very, very important to them and therefore very important to us. We treat the Mazda 2 with just as much enthusiasm as we treat the Ferrari, and we want to share the client's enthusiasm along the process and along the journey, just to make sure that they really feel like we're in tune and we care about getting them a really good outcome. I'm going to hand over to Rick now just to discuss how we manage escalations. Rick, over to you.
Thanks, man. So there's a number of ways to manage escalations. Here at Amfin, we use the CARE method because we actually genuinely care. The C in CARE stands for common ground. So no matter how angry the client is, we always try to use that common ground to help build that rapport from the outset. In an environment like we're in today with COVID and lockdowns, it could sound something like, I don't know about you, but this lockdown's driving me crazy. I'm spending lots of time with my partner and a mother-in-law, and I'm recently married, and they're both great, but I'm ready to go back to work. The A is apologize. So here at Amfin, we pride in our ability to take ownership and responsibility for the experience we deliver to your clients. In our industry, things don't always go to plan, especially when dealing with third parties. So no matter what the reason or issue, we take full accountability, we apologize where necessary, and we act quickly to rectify the issue. The R is recap. So this is probably the most important out of all the steps. It's how we clarify what the actual problem was. This helps us ensure our plans to rectify the issue are going to be successful moving forward. And the last part is explain. So this is essentially us communicating the next steps and where we're going to take, what we're going to do to resolve the issue.
Yeah, for sure. I might just jump in. The last 2 points there, recap and explain, are very critical to problem solving and to managing escalations, because it really gives us some direction as to kind of where to go next. The recap phase can sound like, hey, Mr. Customer, I understand that you've got an issue at the moment and we're here to try and resolve that. Let me just make sure I'm on the same page so I can assist you going forward. You were told that you would have an approval within 24 hours. It's now been 48 hours and you're wondering what's going on. And also the rate that you were expecting is slightly higher due to the LVR of the car. Am I, right in saying that? Are we on the same page? So it gets us to the core of the issue. The client at that point can say, yep, Luke, you're exactly right. Or they might say, actually, I've also got a problem with this. And it just gives us that kind of exploration there to make sure that they understand, that we understand, and that, we can actually rectify that problem going forward. The explain, could sound something like, thank you for sharing that with me. Good to see we're on the same page. What I'm going to do is get off the phone with you, speak to the credit team leader at Macquarie, let them know this needs to be approved by today. And then no matter what the outcome, I'll be on the phone with you before close of business to let you know how it's all going. And then at least the client knows that we're, have a plan, we're taking action, and they can kind of see the steps that we're going to do to try and rectify that issue. This leads us into our next slide, which is some of the tips around when you're doing these things, how to make it the most effective. So the first one is to act swiftly. So after that phone call and you've said, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, our team doesn't just dawdle or wait an extra day. They're straight away on the phone delivering on that promise, because the speed in which you react to these things is really important. Some of the clients that are our biggest advocates might have had a bump along the way, but it's how you respond to that and how quickly you can rectify that issue that really turns them around. So that's really important. The next thing is to follow up on any promises or any commitments. So if you've said that you're going to give them a call by a close of business, making sure you deliver on that is really important. Some of the biggest frustrations that clients have is when you've said you're going to do A, but you do B, and they're waiting for that phone call to come through and it doesn't come. So really important that you follow up on your promises. And one of my favorites is whether it's good, bad, or no news, always deliver it. So sometimes, Macquarie might say to us, sorry, Luke, it's going to be another 24 hours because, we're really swamped. ignoring that customer or not making that phone call or not getting back to them isn't the answer. Sometimes you have to have that tough conversation and let them know. So whether it's good or bad news, or if there is no update, look, I couldn't get through, they didn't answer the phone, getting back to them and letting them know that they are still at the front of your mind, you're still trying to solve the problem and you haven't forgotten about them is really, really important. Now that actually concludes our slides for today. So I really do appreciate your attendance and we really do appreciate all of those who have joined us throughout the series so far. Once again, keep your eyes peeled for that bonus webinar. I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future, as is Rick. So really good to spend this time with you all. I'll pass over to Christina now just to close off and open up a Q&A. Christina.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks, Richard. Just for those who want to ask a question, as I mentioned before, you can raise your hand using that top right button in your screen. Once we call on you, we'll enable you to unmute yourself, which you can then do by just clicking the unmute button also found in that top right of your screen. So we'll just leave the floor open for a few seconds for any questions to come through.
Thank you, Christina. So we'll probably give it 10 to 20 seconds for any questions to pop up. Also noting Alpha, I'll send you a slide deck that you can receive via email, and also there's a recording of this session going around, so you'll be able to see everything in conjunction, so it's not a problem. And aside from that, I think once again, Rick and I have done a slam dunk and knocked it out of the park, so there's no questions to come through. Once again, everyone, please stay safe, look after each other. My team is here if you need us, and we'll see you on the next series. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Great day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Do look out for your follow-up email. That will have your CPD codes. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. Bye, everyone. Bye.